Welcome everyone to another week of Tuesday Talks with FEO. This one is Supply and Demand, the weekly online gathering where we share industry insights, learn about adapting to the ever-changing landscape of live events and festivals. So I'm your guest host for this week, Kyle Sipkens. This week is Supply and Demand, a series of panel discussions with suppliers representing different areas of the festival and events industry to discover what you'll need when knowing your event in 2021 and into 2022, and how we can work together to rebuild Ontario's diverse festival landscape. So we're going to introduce our panel guests in just a moment. But first, before we do that, a few housekeeping items, because a few more people have jumped on the call. Just to let you know, this session will be recorded today and it will be available online after. Jay is going to edit it and post it usually pretty quickly after. If you do have any questions, feel free to either put them in the chat window or raise your hand react, and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can. You don't have to wait until the end of the talk to bring in your questions. This is meant to be an open, casual conversation. And right now, there is a lot of questions that we have in the industry as organizations, as event organizers, as suppliers. So we want to make sure that we all try to get these and support each other as best as we can. So this week, we're going to be having a very exciting topic that I think is why we have such high registration this week, is how technology can help your festival, event, or organization raise funds. A very big challenge right now in the ever-changing climate that we're in. And we are joined by two awesome guests today. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves one at a time. And Mark Jordan, since you're the first one in my window here, I'm going to have you introduce yourself first.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kyle. And thanks very much to Festivals and Events Ontario for this opportunity. So my name is Mark Jordan, and I am the Community Engagement Lead at tiptap. What does that mean? I work with organizations that are either working in the community, such as events and festivals, or organizations that are fundraising and giving back to the local community, like United Way, Rotary, YMCA, etc. I've been with tiptap since November of 2020. The company has been around since 2018. And my background, just briefly, is I actually came out of the agency world, where I first spent the first chapter of my career, and have spent the last almost 10 years now in the not-for-profit or giving back space. So that's me, and we'll talk a little bit more about tiptap, obviously, in a bit.
Oh, that's perfect. Thanks so much. And our other guest is Simon Cusack. So Simon, I'm going to have you introduce yourself as well.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, thanks so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk about Rafflebox and let everybody know what we're all about. I'm currently the COO and one of the co-founders of Rafflebox. Similar to Mark, we're helping nonprofits and charities. It sounds like we got a lot of similar customers as well, United Ways and YMCA. So it's great to see, other companies as well helping out in the space today. My background for Rafflebox was basically created the company around 2016. It took a little bit of time to get going just because of rules and regulations in terms of the space we operate in, like 50/50s and raffles and provincial gaming. But slowly over time there, they've come around, and now we're able to offer the service essentially national at this point in time. Quebec is the only province we're really not operating in. But yeah, just looking forward to today and letting everybody know what we're up to and what we're doing. So
that's great. Thanks so much. And who knows, after this, you two may be finding ways to collaborate and partner together after this.
Yeah, I've already been thinking about it for about a month now. So I've seen tiptap, out in public, just in different areas with different customers, and in general, I just really think what they're doing is very cool from a technology standpoint as well. So yeah, I'm excited to hear more about tiptap as well today. So.
Fantastic. And, and I don't want to belabor it. I think there's a lot that we can talk about here. And I think that there's going to be a lot of questions specifically about, how it can help individual organizations. And so, I don't want to wait too long. So, Mark, we're going to start with you just to, get some variety here. So why don't you tell us a bit more about what it is that your company does, and some examples of places that you've worked with.
Sounds good. I'm going to share my screen. I don't have a ton of slides to share, but just more to guide the conversation. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Sorry. 22 months into this, I shouldn't have to ask that, but I will ask it.
Well, you are screen sharing. I haven't seen a deck pop up yet, but.
Okay, 1 second.
Not
yet there, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. Hang in there with us, folks, as we get it figured out. Technical difficulties are one. I'm not. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
We got it.
Perfect. All right. Now that we're over that hurdle. So let me talk a little bit about TipTap. For those that haven't seen us in the market, we at our core are this tiny little device that I'm holding in my hands. And for reference scale, it's about the size of a deck of cards and about as thick. So super compact. What makes this device unique is that we accept payments and donations completely standalone. What do I mean by standalone? Well, the first thing is you don't need to connect this to an app. You don't need to connect it to a phone, to another device of any kind. There's no integration involved. It actually runs off of the same network as your cell phone does. So there's no Wi-Fi integration, which, thinking about this audience, you know, running into scenarios where either you got to connect to the Wi-Fi or you're in a venue where the Wi-Fi is challenging because you've got hundreds of participants, not an issue. You connect it to the same network or the device connects to the same network as your cell phone. And then the last thing that's unique about it is you'll see each device has a fixed denomination associated with it. So in that moment of a transaction or a donation, that moment of empathy, there is no kind of what will I donate or what will I pay. It's literally what you see is what you tap, what you pay. So for those reasons, our device is pretty unique. You literally plug this in or power it off a battery if you're not near a plug, like out at a festival in a field kind of scenario, and you're up and running and collecting in seconds. And not exaggerating, actually, if you follow us on LinkedIn, we have several videos that demonstrate how quick and easy it is to set this device up. So that is our device at its core. Obviously, putting this device out on anywhere, no one's going to know, what is this? What are you asking me to do with this? So part of our solution is we actually wrap it in messaging. And what you're seeing on screen is a blown up version of one of our displays, countertop unit that you might find like at a food truck, at a festival, for example, and completely modular. So the only thing you're actually changing is the marketing messaging, that card in the middle, which actually isn't a card, it's a weatherproof and waterproof styrene, printed on 60-point styrene. And that's it, right? You could be running multiple events, multiple different fundraisers. And again, all you're changing out is the creative. So we have some, we call it our out-of-box solution, different form factors, from posters to countertop units to floor stands, even a wearable version that you literally wear around your neck. Rather than kind of walk you through them here, you'll see them in action in a second, because I thought better to show versus tell. And I've got some examples to share with you. Why do we exist? You know, TipTap was started by our founder, Chris Greenfield, in 2018, really as a way to replace cash. Cash and coin has been disappearing, continues to disappear. It's been accelerated over the last 20 or so months by what we've all been experiencing. But he actually experienced a moment of empathy interacting with someone in a tipping scenario where he actually didn't have any cash on him to tip this individual. Got into a conversation, realized how massive a percentage of that individual's income was actually dependent on tipping. And in that moment of inspiration and empathy, TipTap was born. So with that in mind, I just want to take you through a few examples, and I'll actually start with that kind of territory. as a starting point. So we have a solution that allows you to obviously make payments, make donations, and also we've been using it with some of our partners to encourage tipping. So an easy way to recognize people for their service. It replaces literally the tip jar, which you still do see out there less frequently, and allows an organization to basically recognize their staff and give them acknowledgement and reward. So imagine this, in a festival scenario or an event scenario, either at a coat check or anywhere at a festival for that matter. We've also worked with the North American Midway. And this is an example of something we did with them at the Saskatoon X. So one of our device form factors I mentioned is the wearable. We can actually also put it on a selfie stick. So in this scenario, which we ran last summer, they were using it at the games at the Saskatoon X to make it physically distance friendly, and also a bit more of an engaging part of the overall experience at those games. More recently, we worked with partners like Interac. They have a new brand positioning and a holiday life event series they ran over the holidays. One of the things we brought to life for them was this carousel at the Vancouver Christmas Market, which was pretty cool because 13 years Vancouver Christmas Market has run. The carousel has been there every year. Didn't really do anything different other than this year. Interact said to ride the carousel, it's a $10 donation for a family, $5 for an individual, $2 for a kid. And they ended up raising enough for 5 wishes because the recipient here was Make-A-Wish Canada. And you can see the ROI that they saw as a result as well. We helped them with a retro drive-in series in partnership with Metro, 20 locations across Ontario last summer. Again, enabling things like the concession stands, raffle tickets going forward. Would be great to work with someone like a Rafflebox to do this, but they were doing the old school selling raffle tickets, physical raffle tickets. They saw a tremendous ROI. And then really easy to enable volunteers. So if you think about staff at an event, typically there's training, onboarding involved. Our solution, the benefit of it is you can literally hand the device to a volunteer and they're up and running again in seconds. So Rotary used this at some of their rib fests last summer and saw the benefit of a solution that not only allowed them to raise funds, but made it really easy to pass it from volunteer to volunteer. Ribfest and Craft Beer Festival in Kitchener, Food Bank of Waterloo Region integrated their fundraising into this event. They raised enough for 3,525 meals that were funded through this weekend event alone. And then bringing it to things like food truck festivals, SickKids Foundation is using TipTap at the Burlington Food Truck Festival last fall. One thing I'll say with some of these ROI numbers you're seeing on screen, on average, we see, regardless of the scale of who we're working with, 4 to 6 times is kind of the sweet spot. So 400 to 600% ROI, return on your investment in the TipTap solution. And then the last example I'll share, I think there's someone here from Fan Expo. We love this one internally. It's Whovian approved. TipTap is Whovian approved. The Doctor Who Society actually used it to raise funds for SickKids at Fan Expo last year. And you can see here, the display was really nicely integrated into their booth with this custom model phone box or phone booth. And that's what I'll leave you with is, because of the nature of the device, you're limited only by your imagination in terms of how you actually bring this to life at an event.
Which is fantastic. I come as a professional street performer. So, typically this is how I'm used to accepting tips. And the challenge of going to a cashless society, even before COVID happened, before we started to see change in habits and shifting to different things, it was, how are we going to survive in an ever cashless society? And I have started to see actually street performers with these TipTap pays already appear. It's going up on the case. And of course it hasn't replaced cashless or cash tips. They usually hold out the hats, have that out. And there's another solutions were starting to go to these things.
Oh, yes. Yep.
You know, we're all having to adapt to how to best work, and finding ways to creatively integrate like that Doctor Who integration is fantastic. And we do have a couple of questions popping up here as well. So Chris, we're going to jump to you in just a sec, or we're just going to jump over in just a second. But there was a question that I saw pop up saying, how do people obtain donation receipts for income tax purposes? And that's from Al at Fan Expo.
Fantastic question. Yeah, so the device itself we do not actually collect natively, just through a tap, any personally identifiable information. And the reason for that is from a credit card security and compliance perspective, PCI compliance. That said, how we actually allow for tax receipting, and again, we started as a company to replace cash and coin. So literally those boxes where people were putting a $5 bill and not expecting a receipt, we replaced that fundamentally. So we found, vast majority, in fact, Salvation Army, one of our largest clients, tens of thousands of transactions. I can count on one hand the number that requested a tax receipt. That said, we do know that there is a need in certain scenarios. And the way we enable that is actually through a QR code on our signage. And we've got some pretty elegant examples I can share as a follow-up from this, where basically you scan to get a tax receipt, and it's all about the messaging. Scan the QR code if you want a tax receipt, take into a form, really easy, enter your information, and then you enter the same 4 digits you used on the tap, the last 4 digits of your card, and you can actually cross-reference that through the dashboard that we give you access to. Right. So there are ways that our partners are actually using it to initiate that tax receipt experience. Absolutely.
So the donor, unless they follow the QR code and to another area, they're not going to get a tax receipt at that point.
Correct. Unless they take that intent and lean forward. More and more, we're seeing donors are more and more savvy around where their data is going and how it's being used. We still give them the permission with their intent and leaning forward to provide that information.
And having said that, is there a way to track how do you track the donations that are coming in? How do you track that information that you are getting?
Great question. So every TipTap is connected to a dashboard, and it's real time. So when a transaction occurs, you see it populated in the dashboard. So every customer, every partner we work with has access to that. And within that, you can see the transaction. So you can see the amount, the card used, the last 4 digits, and the time and date stamp, as well as other insights like time of day. When are people actually transacting? So in a volunteer scenario, you might have staffed up for an 8-hour day, but over a series of days, you realize actually only donations are happening in the afternoon. Well, now I can adjust my volunteer schedule accordingly, where you didn't necessarily have that insight before. And I will say the dashboard becomes quite addictive. When there's a program in market, it's like refresh as you're seeing the donations.
Yeah.
Everyone likes seeing money come in. That's and there was I know there's a bunch of questions coming in here, and Simon, we're going to get to you in just a second. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
I called you Chris earlier. I don't know why, but we will get to you in just a second. There was one question, and then we'll jump over. Rob asks, can we work with the representative to talk about the best way to use TipTap at our festival? Can we use it to help build data for performance measurement, such as part of an economic impact study?
Oh, fantastic question. So, the short answer to the first one is yes. Given I'm representing TipTap today, you can reach out to me and I will connect you with one of my colleagues. In terms of the economic, doing something on an economic impact scale, we've been talking to a couple of transit organizations recently, exactly with that type of a view in mind. So actually running a program where the goal is actually to test and learn, and then actually publish a white paper on the best ways that organizations can raise funds, in that case, through using transit as a vehicle or as a canvas, as one of our transit partners has talked about. So yes, we'd love to, those are the types of opportunities that we'd love to partner with, and would be open to that. And again, the data that I talked about, there's much more rich information we can get into. I don't want to take up too much time today, but the dashboard would enable a lot of what you're asking.
Yeah. I see that there's more, like Judy and Rhonda. We'll get to your questions in just a second. I just don't want to make Simon wait too long, but we will jump back in Cambridge Canada Day as well. I know that Mark is going to have an answer for your question, but Simon, I want to give you the chance as well, jumping over to your raffle box. And for someone who is maybe thinking of integrating a raffle, particularly, maybe they can't have an in-person raffle, can you walk us through what it is that Rafflebox does?
Sure, I'm going to share my screen here as well. I did this morning tap at the Tim Hortons here in Nova Scotia, Mark. So it was a very easy,
Thank you
process,
for that.
that's for sure. I'm just going to... So can you all see this here?
Yeah, it is popping up. Great.
So Rafflebox, essentially, we created an online platform for nonprofits and charities to run online fundraisers through either 50/50s or prize raffles. Currently, we also do live events. So we just moved into this space where we have terminals, essentially, that you can go around and sell 50/50 tickets for prizes for. We started the company essentially back in 2016. The idea actually came from, we were at, our CEO was at the rodeo, the Stampede, and he was sitting there on the bench, and there was 20 people to his left, 20 people to his right. He wanted to go buy a 50/50 ticket, but he essentially just couldn't get there. And he was like, I got to get up. I got to walk past all these people, go downstairs, find a booth, buy my ticket, and then make my way back. So he essentially said there's got to be an easy way to do this, like a much easier way to do this compared to the current process. So from there, we started chatting with a couple of our friends. A lot of us came from a very technical background, technical careers, and started innovating on the idea. So we're a Canadian company. We have around 25 staff at the moment and growing. Last year, we raised approximately $52 million for our charitable clients across Canada. Typically, we raise around $5 million in raffle ticket sales per month on the platform. We have thousands of customers currently, and we've ran 10,000 successful online raffles across Canada. So we work with like anyone who essentially is a nonprofit or charity. So we work with schools, universities, lots of minor sports teams, hospitals, animal shelters. We run, online events up to actual festivals, like Calgary Folk Fest. I'll show a few in our deck here, but we are in a regulated industry. Compared to the donation side, it's a little bit more work in order to get a raffle up and running, because you typically have to go through the AGCO, for example, in Ontario, or the local governing body. But we've ran so many, and I believe we've created good relationships with the bodies that are in charge of these, that we can easily walk through our customers on how to set these up, get things going, and sort of what's the fastest way to get things up and running. So our products are, we'll build a custom web page out. We do early bird prizes and checkout add-ons. Mainly what we concentrate on is the online 50/50 and prize raffles. But as I said, I'll have a deck here on, now we have in-venue terminals that you can walk around and sell your 50/50 tickets. It's just tap, credit card, cash, you can take, debit. We have lots of various features. On the website alone, you'll have a picture of, poster of your event, description, the different packages you're selling, what the funds are going for, or what the funds are going towards, rules and regulations. And we have a lot of customers that will run one-offs just for their events, but we have a lot of customers that run weeklies or monthlies, and they basically brought in this style of fundraising as an additional sort of revenue stream or fundraising stream for the nonprofit or charity. It's all digital at the end of the day now. So, I grew up playing lots of sports and doing lots of fundraising in my community, and I've shook the can outside the the grocery store to collect the cash. So I can definitely see where getting rid of the cash came from the TipTap side. And like at the end of the day, you're really sharing on your socials about your 50/50 in raffle. It lets you, maybe get a larger audience than what you traditionally after if you were doing it physically. But yeah, we auto generate the emails, the tickets. We have in-house marketing to help you out. So like a couple examples, we work with Fort Edmonton Foundation. When COVID came about there, we were doing all right as a business. We were slowly getting customers on, but COVID really forced a digital shift for nonprofits and charities to go online. Similar to I'd say TipTap with like tapping and not really touching and being together. So, for ways where, a lot of people would be going to Fort Edmonton Foundation, visiting it, people can't come anymore. So they're like, what can we do to raise funds in the meantime? So they've ran about 17 raffles with us. They do, a raffle every 30 days. Their average jackpot's about 10,000. So they've raised around almost $200,000 with us. They like to have a lot of fun with it. And, we'll have a St. Patty's raffle or a Valentine's Day or a Christmas one. Calgary Folk Fest. So we worked with them a fair amount. They sell out really, really quick. And same with COVID again. We didn't know if they were going to have it in person. So quickly you're able to still pivot and still raise funds, even if it doesn't happen at the end of the day. So yeah, the platform is very, very much self-serve. It's easy to walk in and set this all up yourselves, but at the same time, we have a full customer support desk and customer success team that helps you onboard and get things set up. And it's super simple. When we built this platform, we wanted it to be very user-friendly. Mark's talking about the dashboard that he has. We have a very similar dashboard with tons of metrics. Like if you send an email out, it shows when people are buying. You get all your analytics in there. Very nice way to grow your donor base. So they've used this going forward. They're going to be launching here again with some another festival here, but it's an earlier one. So we're going to be doing in-venue ticket sales with them, with our devices. But one of the nice things that a lot of the groups and festivals do is you'll sell tickets up to the event. So you can sell for a month before, and then when everybody goes to the event, you already have a seated pot. So you're definitely going to get more people buying tickets and generating more funds for your cause. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oktoberfest, we recently did one there in Kitchener and Waterloo. Unfortunately, that did end up getting canceled last minute, but we were able to just help them pivot to move the fundraising aspect of it online. So, once you have your license with the AGCO, it's super simple. It's really like a couple days for us to get you up and running and selling tickets or prizes. So, go ahead if you had a question there.
Yeah, so I've seen with like fall fairs and agricultural societies, during this time that they couldn't happen in person, they were still holding like 50/50 draws, but you had to line up in person the same way that we were lining up for drive-through COVID tests. And, you still had to have that in-person aspect. So with Rafflebox, you don't actually have to be there in person. You can run it fully online, or when we can have either a hybrid or fully in-person event, people could still enter the raffle and participate without having to be there in person.
Exactly. Yeah. So the hybrid model, and that's what we're excited for, is when things get back to normal and we are in person, and integrating the online and the in-venue handhelds all integrating together onto the platform. So there's multiple hybrid ways to sell tickets and raise funds.
But this does still require, you still have to get the licensing from the AGCO.
Still have to get licensing through the AGCO, yeah. So, and that goes for if people are in from other provinces, you have to work through the local gaming bodies. Essentially, it is we fall under gambling or regulatory, but it is fundraising at the end of the day. But it's alcohol and gaming that you typically have to work for to get your licenses to run these types of events in Canada.
Right. And Rob had a question, like a very direct question for you here. He said, our festival is run by our BIA and the town administers our budget. How can we get a raffle license without having to go through the municipality? They would essentially be issuing a license to themselves and are not able to do that. I'm not sure if you have any.
Yeah, so in Ontario, you can submit a letter to the local municipality that you are applying to this through the AGCO, and you will be able to get a license through the Ontario government at a higher level. So we've seen a lot where a lot of groups do get them from the municipality, but if you apply at the AGCO level, you typically are able to get your licenses. You have to be a nonprofit or a charity.
Fantastic. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand. Oh, looks like you got a couple more.
Yeah, I just got two more slides. So
all right.
This is our in-venue PAX device. Pretty much just has your ticket prices on it. So we did one this was in Quebec actually. You can do in-venue, but you can't do online in Quebec. But they had, this was ran over 6 days and they did 80,000 at the festival. And these devices are credit card, debit. You can also take cash with them. So we're using these a lot now, say with like the Alberta Junior Hockey Leagues, a lot of sort of more pro sports that are having frequent events. And we lease so you can buy these terminals. And then, yeah, it's just easily selling tickets, at your in-person event with the handhelds. Ticket buyer can complete a purchase in less than a minute. It's really about 30 seconds. It'll print off all their tickets information. And it does connect to Wi-Fi and cellular data. So sometimes a lot of these places that you do have events don't always have the best connectivity. But this is right now in the process of going through the government in Ontario and will be available by, I would say, March 1st. For anybody else that's outside of Ontario that's on the call, it's available now in all the other provinces. So a little bit of more regulations in Ontario to go through. So.
Well, yeah, and this has been an interesting challenge. I mean, for people who work across the border, it's, there's been certain technologies that have been available for a while, even in cash sharing, like Venmo and things like that. It's been harder to get here in Canada, and our spending habits are a bit different. But there are some questions that we want to get here too, because I know I'm wondering as well. So I believe Judy's question was actually for Mark, but I'm going to post it to both of you. Mark, we'll go to you first. Are these units something you rent for an event or buy?
Yeah, great question. We have a rental or leasing model, in part because having this as a capital expense doesn't make sense, especially when you're running events. And you also benefit from the fact that we're continually upgrading the devices over time. So it's a lease per month.
Okay, and Simon, to you as well.
Yeah, so we have two different models. So for the in-venue terminals, you can lease or rent. Some folks actually buy, but our online platform side, we have no upfront cost essentially. So we've had lots of customers who went and got all set up with us. The event didn't happen; they weren't able to run. You're not going to get charged for that at the end of the day. Essentially, how we work is it's a percentage at the end of the raffle of your total ticket sales. So there's no fee to get started, no fee for us to build your website, help you work through the process of the government to get your approvals. At the end is where we look at that on our payment. So.
Okay, and this starts to touch on Rhonda's question as well. And so Simon, you started to touch on it. So for you, there's it's a percentage of the total raised. So can you give us an example of
yeah, so we're around about 7%. So in Ontario, they do it by a transaction fee. So typically, it might be anywhere from $2 to $2.50 per transaction. But what we like to do is we like to help you with set ticket packages that actually make sense for you, right? You're not going to do a $3 or $5 ticket package, but we've ran so many that we know what packages work best where we make the most money at the end of the day. So essentially for, there's usually some other fees in terms of paying the government, but for a 50-50, 50% is going to the winner, around 40% is going to your nonprofit organization, and there's 10% in expenses or fees. If you're doing prize raffles, the nonprofit or charity takes home 90% of basically total ticket sales, and then that 7 to 10% is there for expenses.
I mean, if you're basically potentially doubling your audience by having people not have to be there in person, there's that 40% that you keep, it can become quite large.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is we just saw with a lot of our competitors that there was a lot of upfront fees. So
Right.
like, it's $1,500 just to sign up. You have to pay a server fee over here. You got to sign up for a minimum of 3 raffles that you got to do. So with us, it's really like on board, get set up. The platform's there to use for all of your events. Like once you sign up, it is that essentially that percentage at the end. There's really no other fee. So there's really no cost or no barrier of entry, I guess I could say. At the end of the day, there is no barrier anymore. You can hop on and use it, and you're sort of good to go. So.
Great. And Mark, we'll jump back to you as well. Thank you for waiting so patiently.
No problem.
So what type of transaction fees are we looking at for, is it based on the transaction or a monthly fee? Like what is it that you're looking at for TipTap?
Yeah, there's 3 numbers that I'll put out there for you to keep in mind: 30, 12, and 5. So we try and keep our pricing model, our investment model simple. 30 is the leasing fee per device per month. 12 is a one-time fee that we charge for the signage and the printing, irrespective of what display you're going with. So we've kept it simple. It's at a device level. So it doesn't matter if you're printing a poster or a single device, backstage pass that you hang around your neck. And then 5 is the transaction fee in a given month. So 5% or 5 cents on the dollar. And we work currently with Moneris and Global Payments. I think I saw a question in the chat around, do we integrate with Stripe? Today, those are the 2 we work with. And I say today because we're constantly looking at, based on the demand from our customers, where else we might go. And the funds are deposited directly into our partners' bank accounts. That's how that works. So we actually connect the devices directly to a bank account through Moneris or Global Payments in Canada. Okay,
so and I think that addresses Lucy's question down.
Yeah, we do the same. So we are tied to Stripe for the online portion, and then the in-venue is Global Payments essentially.
Right, which seems to be quite common. Like
quite common, yeah.
The QR code, it seems to be mostly Stripe connected. And Debbie has a question. I'm going to get to her in 1 second, but Cambridge Canada Day had a question of, we plan on using these devices to collect donations on a parade route. Would you recommend a wearable device, or is there another device that's better suited to this? And I think that you have a very specific parade device that might be helpful for them.
We do indeed. We call it the Parade Bucket. And as it sounds, and it was originally conceived for use in things like Santa Claus parades. We've had, the police association use it in drive-throughs collecting funds for Ronald McDonald House charities. But it is, as it sounds, a bucket with a tip tap embedded in it. And as you're at a parade, we recognize while cash is disappearing, there are still people out there who do carry cash. So it actually allows you to do both, collect the cash en route and have that tap to donate. So that is the form factor we would recommend for a parade for sure.
Yeah, and that is available. You can see on the website. And I mean, that seems to be the best way is, the path of least resistance. If someone has cash on them, give them the option,
Absolutely.
But, yeah. So Debbie, we'll jump over to your question as well, if you're ready there.
Yeah, I just had a question. What if a big event, what if a big festival wants to hire you for, I don't know, maybe it's free, but they have somebody walk in, or they have a lot of vendors and they want vendors to use TipTap. Is there any way that do they manage that and then get part of the fees? How does that work? for both
That-
of you?
That's a great question. Do you want me to jump in
You
first?
go first, Mark,
Okay.
and I can go.
Yeah. So the way that we would work with an organization that's working with multiple vendors, as an example, is we actually have the ability to allow a festival or an event to easily order and manage devices on behalf of the vendors at that festival. It's online ordering portal, basically allows you as a festival organizer to simply collect, the number of devices and who's actually they're being shipped to, et cetera. Then we also have the ability to do more bulk ordering. So again, our pricing and our investment model is based on the number of devices and the time frame that you lease them for. So it's actually advantageous to a festival to look at, even over the course of a year, if they're in multiple locations, you might want to look at, how many devices do we actually need over the entire course of the year? And then you're, as a festival organizer, not responsible for the ordering process. We'll help you with that. And then we can ship them to you to disperse or directly to your vendors. We're very flexible that way.
And so from our side, there's a couple of different ways. Really, everything is managed within the dashboard. So what we do for online 50/50s and raffles is we have a cool feature called In Support Of. So essentially, you can add volunteers. United Way uses this a lot for doing their corporate giving campaign in the fall, where they add multiple businesses, for example. And all those businesses or volunteers, they get a unique URL. So you can actually do the tracking based on an individual level or a business level about how much they're raising. It's great because you can have tons of people out there selling, but you're able to track everything down to very detailed levels of who is selling what and when. In terms of the in-venue terminals, it's all managed from the dashboard as well. So you would hand them out, it tracks how much they've raised, cash collection, and then, same type of concept. You would have different people selling on your behalf, but we would manage all of the ordering and deployment for you, getting things set up. Most of the configuration is done either in-house, but it is very simple as well. So if you did want to manage it yourself, you can manage it all. The one in the rodeo there in Quebec, he had 20 terminals and he managed the whole thing by himself. And we flew out there just to hang out for a bit, but he didn't even have to ask us the question, which was pretty good. So it was a good opportunity to see everything in action and just see how many questions actually came back.
It's one of the benefits of being in the industry, isn't it? You get to just fly out and get to enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to go to a lot of festivals and events this year. And we also just we worked with Curling Canada, so Curling Alberta. So we're doing all the major tournaments this year. We're now working with a lot of more pro sports teams, AGHLs. So it's exciting. It's going to be really exciting when everything gets back to where we can all meet in person and participate and raise funds this way again. So.
I know we're all looking forward to that. And Al from Fan Expo has a question for Simon. Do the in-venue and online raffles act as separate raffles, or can you do both?
So you can combine them as a hybrid. So for example, you're in-venue, you're selling. I might be seeing your commercial on the TV and I can sit and buy a ticket from my couch. It all integrates into one. The pot would grow as one. You can actually separate them as well as you want. It really doesn't take much time for the teams to create the pages. So yeah, you can have the in-venue and then online combined or not combined.
Which is fantastic because you can essentially integrate that into your marketing that you can play from home.
Yeah.
Which is depending on the legality in your province. It's
depending on the legality.
Exactly. We'll put that little asterisk there at the bottom. So we've talked about it a little bit, but I'm also very curious about the dashboard because you've alluded to how this can be a really helpful tool. So not only is it tracking the amounts that are coming in and the individual transactions, but what are the other possible benefits that how are folks using the data that's being collected on the dashboard side? And Mark, we'll go to you first.
Sure. So I talked a little bit about some of the additional insights like time of day. You can actually tag each device with additional information based on location or other factors. So I'll use an example with the work we do with Salvation Army. You know, we have thousands of these devices across the country. Tagging them based on, you know, is this in a Walmart? Is that an LCBO? You can actually group together and start to see trends around, you know, how are all the devices that are in Walmart locations performing relative to other locations. So really flexible. I think the way that we've set up our dashboard is there's kind of top line metrics that you would expect: dollars collected, number of taps, where those taps are coming from. And then we've added in the flexibility, because every single customer and every single scenario is slightly different, for you to actually customize the data that you can assign to a TipTap device. And it's really dependent on your business needs and what you need to measure at the end of the day. So we've allowed that flexibility in the tool. And then you can export any and all of the data, because we also recognize that, you know, organizations are using other tools, whether they're like business intelligence tools or just Excel to compile results and reports. So again, flexibility in terms of accessing and downloading that data from the dashboard to manipulate it.
Fantastic. And for Simon as well.
Very similar to what Mark was describing in his dashboard there. We'll do like we have something called Message Center built in, so automatic emails to customers about pod updates, updating who the winner is. You'll see all of your metrics based on time of day when people are buying, what your busiest time is. It'll track like your total sales, monthly sales, weekly sales. The great thing about it is, you know, you are sharing this on social media, so it's a great way to grow your donor base. And as the owner of the account with Rafflebox, you have total access to all of those emails at the end of the day. We also have tagging, so you can actually tag different types of customers. We just did a project with the Alberta SPCA. So now they're able to look back and see, okay, I saw this customer hasn't bought a ticket in 6 months, for example, for an event, or for just for the 50-50. You can do like dedicated targeting to specific groups with tags to say like, hey, you know, you're always a big spender when it comes to my organization or my charity. I'm going to target you with a specific email, and you're allowed to actually customize those emails and send them out, or export them and put them into your tools, for example, if you're going to do some targeted marketing. So
fantastic. And I mean, having these tools at your disposal, regardless of the organization. I know even myself as a performer, when I do certain shows in certain areas, like seeing the different amounts that are coming in, where they're coming from, and how people are choosing to pay, you know, you can see trends start to emerge and can start to, you know, it's always the path of least resistance makes it easiest to get that donation when they feel that moment, that impulse.
oh yeah. One of the other big things is that this year we're pulling a lot of the data in from like Google, for example. So you can see how many page views you're getting, how often people are visiting your sites, and sort of bringing all that data where today you may have to go out and look at it in different places, but having it in one single pane of glass essentially at the end of the day. That's one of our big missions this year, is pulling a lot of that info into the dashboard. So
fantastic. Al had another question of, will the recording of this session and the PowerPoint presentation decks from both presenters be available? Al, yes, this will be recorded and provided later online through YouTube. Jay will be posting that out after. And as far as the PowerPoint decks, like as long as Mark and Simon are willing to share that, I'm sure we can get that posted onto our site as well. And Jay and Debbie will make sure to mention where that can be made available.
I saw another question there on how do you pick the winner? So in Ontario, random number generation is approved. So you can actually, it's pretty much just a click of a button. It'll sort through your database of buyers and select that individual, provide you with the name, phone number. We also have early bird prizes built in. So it's pretty much just a click of a button at the end of the day. Not sorting through a bin of 100,000 tickets and pulling something out. So there's significant cost savings as well from that traditional model of fundraising to moving it online. It just it's pretty significant. Some provinces you still have to do that. We recently did a big one here for Christmas Daddies in Nova Scotia. It was super successful, but we had to print off almost 300,000 tickets.
Wow.
And put them in a barrel. So we're hoping random number generation is approved here very soon, because obviously it was 41 kilometers of paper was printed at the end of the day long.
Yeah, it's a lot of trees, and
a lot of trees, a lot of money. It's not very eco-friendly, so random number generation is definitely the way to go. But our company can still print them out for you. We've built a proprietary barrel printing system. We would print them and essentially purulate them out to you. So
fantastic. And Rhonda had another question. Does a donor get any type of receipt for tapping? That's for Mark, I'm assuming. Yeah, I believe so. Sorry.
That's okay. So again, not natively. So meaning like if you just tap a device, you're not actually issued a tax receipt. But we do have a solution, and our partners have been using it, where you scan a QR code, enter your information, and then a tax receipt can be issued. So part of the overall experience, but not native to the tap, because we can't actually collect personal information through the tap device from a credit card and PCI security standpoint.
Fantastic. And Judy had a question. Simon, this platform gives the numbers to the customer as a printout when in person. Can we use this to sell our UTV tickets?
What are UTV?
I don't, Judy, I don't know, Judy, if you're able to type it in, or if you're able to pop on, you're also welcome to turn on your video.
Yes, you can. We have, so if you for everybody here, if you go to rafflebox.ca and you go to our live raffles, there's a search on the left-hand side. So, you can type in Heritage Foundation. We run a bunch of ATV ones, actually. We just launched another one in New Brunswick here just recently. So you can use that to print out tickets you need. So you could do it online, and then if you had a physical offer somewhere, if you needed to do additional ticket printouts, you can. We also have an option in the dashboard that you can export your tickets out, so they're automated for mailing machines. So because a lot of the provinces originally all had different rules and regulations, some older than others, I guess you could say, we've had to work through pretty much every option you can think of. So when it comes to printing ticket delivery, so we should be able to cover whatever pops up.
Fantastic. And we are getting into the final minutes of the talk today. So if you do have any other questions, please feel free to raise your hand or pop it in the chat. And we'll give a chance for each of you to give final thoughts, anything that we didn't touch on as well. But before we do that, I just want to ask, like, you work a lot with not-for-profits, pardon me, with not-for-profits and charities. What is the biggest challenge that you've seen with these organizations during this time? Like what trends and challenges have you seen that have been popping up, and have you been working with them to find unique solutions? Like how have you been able to support them through this? So Mark, we'll go to you first.
Sure. Well, one of the, I guess you could call it a macro trend that we've been seeing is just the sheer acceleration of change that's happening, both from a donor consumer behavior, as well as like the digitization that has just accelerated over the last even 2 years. So the challenge with not-for-profits is, unless you were ahead of the curve, a decade ago and investing significantly, which is also a challenge in the space, period, it's really hard from an innovation standpoint to stay up to date. So we almost consider ourselves, in addition to being an extension of an organization's fundraising team, almost like an outside innovation partner, because you're actually not investing in the technology outside of leasing the devices. And we are constantly innovating in this space. So I think that is one of the bigger macro challenges. And as we move forward, and I'm hoping, as Simon pointed out earlier, we're moving back into a hybrid world, because speaking personally, I'm also a massive fan of festivals and concerts and all those. We need to be in person. I think that's coming back. That's not going to change. Some of these things, it takes What's the saying? It takes 2 months to create a new habit on average. Well, think about all the habits that we've changed over the last 22 months. We're not fully going back to using cash and all of these things that ultimately we're trying to help organizations with.
Oh, that's great. And Simon, do you as well?
Yeah, very, very similar, I guess, on our end. Like pre-COVID, to Mark's point, if a lot of the nonprofits and charities, if you weren't sort of ahead of the game from a digital standpoint, it's a bit of a challenge because there's a lot of learning that takes place. But one of our key missions was creating a platform that was self-serve, very easy to use, easily when you go through the dashboard, creating those reports that are the exact same reports that you need to submit to the governing bodies. One of our biggest things is just sort of help trying to be the voice of a lot of nonprofits and charities to the provincial bodies. So, in some provinces, groups can get a raffle and license in 10 minutes for $20,000. In other provinces, it takes 2 to 3 months. Another example is, like I was saying, about the printing of physical tickets and all these other costs that are associated with the way rules and regulations were for such a long time. So with this digital shift as well, we're pushing the governments as much as we can to say, these old rules in these types of times are restricting. They're not helping groups. So you got to sort of ease off a little bit, but at the same time, show them the data. Have a lot of your nonprofits and charities, reach out to the local governing bodies and say, this really doesn't work anymore, right? So just trying to be a proponent there. And we do see it working. It just takes time, as everything sort of does with the government. But at the end of the day, I think we're getting there. And those governing bodies as well, they know that, they don't want to be a barrier to these groups raising funds. They want to help them at the end of the day. They're customers as well.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the major things that, across the board, everyone's seen is everyone's really had to hit the ground running with change, and sometimes learning as you're running the race. It's big time. It's kind of like, okay, so where am I heading here? What's the, but it's fantastic how, each of these platforms can help with massive change. And I think each of you are absolutely right. The change that we've been seeing, obviously in person will always be the ideal, and nothing is going to replace that, but some habits may change. And the more that we can integrate and adapt and bring in digital solutions or cast a wider net so that people can participate both in person and at home, there was a street performer who said it when we were looking at bringing in QR codes and cashless tips options. It's just like, well, you're basically, these are tips you wouldn't have gotten anyways because they didn't have cash on them. So how would they have? So it's really looking at how you can increase, which is fantastic to see. And of course, Dave, FEO's CEO, says, thanks, Mark and Simon. Very interesting talk and 2 very helpful platforms for our members, either in person or virtual. So he said it better than I did. And it was right there waiting. So, and we are getting into the final minutes here. I don't think anyone has any other questions. If you do, please feel free to pop it in quickly. But I do want to give each of you a chance to share any final thoughts, anything that we didn't touch on yet today. And, we'll just keep going in order. Mark, if you want to go first.
Sure. I guess parting thought is, we are members of FEO ourselves. We're here to help members. Ultimately, our focus on charity and not-for-profit isn't going anywhere. It is rooted in the core and purpose of the company. So we're here to support. We're here to help those that are helping others. That's our mantra. So happy to help.
And I would say very similar story to Rafflebox. From getting you set up, working with you for figuring out how to go through the government, how to apply for licenses. Our customer success team is here to ensure that you're successful, and that at the end of the day, we're going to ensure that your event is a success. Our marketing, we offer marketing services to help you out. So we're part of Festivals in Ontario as well. So we just want to make sure that we're here to support you. And if you have any questions, you can email myself, and I can point you in the right direction. But really excited to get back to whatever hopefully is the new normal at some point here, and be able to attend some events and get back to having a little bit of fun again, I guess you could say. So.
Fantastic. And I do want to thank each of you for joining us today. The information that you've brought is absolutely incredible. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure that everyone on the call has learned a lot as well, and is can take away some really great ideas. I do want to mention, since we're at our time, that Tuesday talks are going to continue. So Tuesday, February 1st, make sure you join us again at 11 a.m. with Debbie will be returning, speaking with Paula Rache. I hope I said her name right, of Canada Games. And they're going to be talking about planning the Canada Games during a pandemic. So I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation that you folks won't want to miss. And until then, a big thank you to Debbie and Jay for organizing, again, the Tuesday talks, and Jay for all the technical on the back end. Oh, and I think there is one, Bob, I think you have a final question there. Do you have a question? Oh, no, sorry, those are applause. Sorry.
No, I'm just thanking them. It was very informative, and I'm going to reach out to both Simon and Mark down the road. I've taken some notes and so forth, but no, I was just raising my hand saying thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I didn't want to make sure no one got missed. But again, thank you so much to everyone, and thank you for joining us. We hope that you will join us again on February 1st. And don't forget that the FEO virtual conference will be coming up as well. That information has gone out to your emails. So we hope that you will join us for that. And until we see you next time, take care and be well.